Hi guys, it's Sarah. So I am going to add my response to the information on a culturally responsive classroom management style. So the first thing isn't really a bullet I found in a resource, although I did find that it was mentioned in almost everything, and that's the idea of implicit or unconscious bias. And we've talked a lot about that in our other classes. But throughout the reading, actually, for both of our assignments this week, I found myself thinking about that and how important it is that we're aware of how our unconscious bias may be impacting our interactions and our reactions to students. So although I didn't go get a source talking about implicit and unconscious bias, I really think that at the core of both culturally responsive classroom management and simply just a culturally responsive classroom is the idea that we have to be conscious of how we are responding to students and if those responses are based on a behavior or based on an idea of an expectation of a behavior that may or may not be based in a cultural idea or norm. So in the article provided by Dr. Uphold, it was really interesting. It talks about the idea that students tend to respond better and behave more appropriately when they're making these decisions on their behavior, not out of fear, but out of a personal desire to do well or, a personal sense of responsibility. And teachers, Nell Noddings is the core of the caring teacher and how important the caring teacher is in a classroom. And I think, again, just like that awareness of our unconscious bias, also it's important that we look at Nell Noddings and we look at that information on a caring teacher. And in that first article, it talks about teachers who are creating these classrooms where caring for students is core or center. They're therefore building communities that students are comfortable to learn in. The second article comes from Edutopia, and Edutopia is kind of my go-to place for most of the questions I have about education or what's new in education. And their article talks about how a lot of times these behaviors that we identify as inappropriate as educators aren't necessarily inappropriate because they're a choice a student is making. Instead, they're simply consequences of a situation maybe a student is not willingly participating in. I found the most interesting thing in this article, and it talks about asthma and how asthma is like the number one medical issue impacting people in general, but how students who have asthma often, if they're unable to sleep, they might come to school irritable in that sleepy drunkenness where they can't focus and they fall asleep and their eyes go back in their head and we get frustrated as teachers. But the article tells us that that behavior isn't due to like a school incident and it's not due to a conscious decision to be disobedient or disrespectful, but instead it's simply because they are, battling asthma. And a lot of times asthma is more commonly found in lower income areas because of the air quality in the housing. And then you also can attach, that maybe that lack of or access to adequate medical care, the cost of inhalers, the access to them, and a bunch of other issues come into just simply a behavior in class that we see as a teacher as being frustrating. The third article, probably the most important thing I took from that is just our tone and how we respond to and interact with students is very important. We just have to ensure that we're speaking to students in a way that they understand, that we kind of meet them where they are, to say it in another way. Thank you.